All right. G'day, everyone. Welcome to Talking Landscape Photography. Nice to be back. And tonight we've got an awesome guest. Really excited actually to see some more work from Jeff Freestone. Been a real big fan of his very elegant sort of landscape photography, very thoughtful and considered work. And so definitely keen to see how his story has unfolded. And yeah, and how's everybody else, guys? Everybody had a good week or two?
Hi, I was Lucky told me about the new DJI drone that got released. So I was frothing over a few videos of that this afternoon. Nick's probably shaking his head in the background and goes, "You Muppets."
No, there was a new drone.
Yeah, no, it's it looks like a pretty nice one, FPV drone, so that it's a bit of a step change for DJI. I guess that they're putting FPV drones have been around for a while. It stands for first person view, and so you basically it's a very immersive sort of perspective, and in order to fly the drone, and the footage is really spectacular because it's very immersive. But yeah, it's sort of bringing it into the mainstream market now in terms of that kind of drone, much harder to fly and much more likely to crash. But the footage is pretty epic. So
basically, they're really fast, not much brakes, and you can kind of do anything if you know how to fly.
Oh yeah, okay, you can fly
a lot of the
through
safety
all sorts
mechanisms
of things
on the regular drones aren't in there. There's a few token gestures at it, but it's but you know how like you can see those videos where they're flying and they angle and it remains, and you can do 360s while you're videoing. That's all stuff you can't do on the traditional drones, and I think it clocks up to 150 k's an hour. So speed wise, it's crazy. And so for really immersive, close, like super wide angled work, which can be really dramatic and quite exciting, it's sort of been more of the realm of specialists and racers and FPVs up to now, not really mainstream. So Loki, I actually spoke to Andrew.
I want to throw to Nick my videos down.
Yeah, just well, you probably won't know, Nick. But somebody suggested that you might not be allowed to fly them in Australia and without a special license. So I'm a bit curious about that.
No idea.
What's that?
All I know is if you can fly at 150 kilometers an hour and zoom in through all sorts of things, there's all sorts of implications other than the photographic ones that
absolutely
might be a bit of an issue. So that'll be interesting. I'm just looking at it on DP Review now, and it's a crazy looking thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and same price as the traditional one, like with I think it's 2,300 for just the drone and one battery, and then another 450, 500 if you want to kind of delve in and get a few batteries, and which you kind of need to get much functionality out of it. So similar price range, really. I think the other news this week is Luke and I both entered the Silver Lining Awards, and that's it's actually totally open to everyone in the world now, basically, and non-members of the APP as well. And I've done, I think I did a one of their image critiques a week ago, and I've just been asked to be a judge today. So it's one of the best competitions I've seen around of late of the new kind. That's really quite diverse and open, and there's a lot of room for straight classic work. Like half of their categories are like basically limited post-production oriented stuff, which Nick is nodding his head at nicely, going, "Yes, I like hearing this." Yes. And it has probably some of the best feedback of any competition out there as well. And that not only can you be part of these image critiques beforehand for members, afterwards, every image gets a comment as well as a score physically. And they also have review sessions post the competition as well, where people can engage with the work and get feedback. So, because to me, that's the greatest potential element of competitions, is getting really clear, constructive feedback from some of the better minds in the country. Potentially, there's a lot of value in that. If you don't mind putting your ego aside and just having a go and taking it on the chin.
I think there was only feedback on one. You could only get feedback on one image, but it's definitely good to get some feedback.
Oh no, there's written feedback on every single image, Lucky.
Oh, okay.
As well.
With mine, I could only select
one. There's only one. You get live feedback on.
Oh, I see. When
That's
they
because
actually
it's
put
like
it.
three and a
Okay,
half
right.
thousand. There might be like 5 or
Oh,
ten
right. I
thousand
didn't even
entries.
realize there was
So
a live component. That's kind of cool.
it
So
would take 10 days or something to do a live feedback on every image.
yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Cool.
anyway,
Yeah, and I
we
think you were
digress, but
probably
that's the news of
sponsoring
the week.
AIPP with the number of entries you put in, Paul. So
I got a little bit last minute carried away. I meant to have time to actually reassess and decide what I wanted to put in, but I ran out of time.
How
And
many
I
weren't
couldn't access
aerials?
half my hard drives because they decided not to work on the day.
very apt question.
Anyway,
Yeah,
Blicky was way more organised than me. He got in like an hour beforehand or something. I had 90 seconds to go.
were there any non-aerials, Paul?
Don't think so.
They're pretty nice. Paulie showed me, and they're yeah, as you would expect. It made me wonder if I should have bothered entering, put it that way. But anyway, we digress.
You're getting some entries ready for another massive international Astro Awards. Is that right?
Oh yes, so there's another one closing on Friday, which is I still can't remember exactly what it's called. It used to be called the Inside Astronomy Awards. I don't know if Insight's sponsoring it anymore, but it's run by the main observatory in the UK, and yeah, it's the premier astrophotography competition. It's actually free to enter, so it's well worth.
Oh, really?
Putting entries in there. Yeah, I think it's because that's why they use that sponsor to kind of get the competition up. I'm pretty sure it's free. So yeah, there's no point. And it's obviously the number of entries they get is pretty big, astronomical. But they have a lot of
very good.
They have a lot to go through. So yeah, so the winners are normally very impressive shots. And I think I've been shortlisted once, and my friend Jay, who we've had on a couple of times, he's also been on the shortlist as well. So it's quite an honor when you make it there. So yeah, so Astro season's well and truly alive, and there was about a week there down here in Hobart where we had pretty much clear nights every night. And given that main Astro time at the moment is about 2 a.m. if you want to shoot the Milky Way core rising, yeah, it's very sleepless. And you know, I always think this time of year is awful because you'd never know if you should go to bed or just stay up, or yeah, it's a challenge. But yeah, when you've got the clear skies, you've got to make the most of it. So that's been quite a bit of fun. And now it's big aurora firing off, and we've got wall-to-wall clouds. So in some ways, I'm kind of glad it's cloudy tonight because the show's on. But yeah, so that's all good.
Yeah, it seems to have been quite a bit of aurora activity lately.
Yeah, we're passing out of the solar minimum, which we had last year, and even during lockdown last year, we had very, very few auroras, and they really are firing up now. And it's really, I think, showing that the solar minimum's passed, and we're now sort of starting. The sun's firing back up again. So in theory, it's only going to get better from here. I'm no solar expert by any means, space weather expert, but yeah, that's certainly my understanding of the situation. So. Back to like when I first moved here, it was almost like an aurora every month, or maybe even a couple of months. So seems to be back at that frequency already, which is really cool. So
yeah, it was worthwhile getting out. That's for sure. It was some beautiful clear weather and no moon, and now it's full moon and full cloud.
Normally it's the other way, actually. Normally it's cloudy when it's the Milky Way and clear when it's the full moon. So it's nice. It's worked in our favour. I think February's just turned out quite nicely that way. So that's good.
Yeah, it was good because that run of nights actually happened when I was on afternoon shift. So I was able to finish work at midnight and then go out and shoot for a few hours. And that was,
yeah, you did quite a bit, didn't you, Nick?
Yeah, I did.
That Franklin shoot looked really nice.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was aurora and the Milky Way rising. It was just really worthwhile going out. So yeah, it was nice.
You snooze, you lose.
Yeah, well, I'm personally very sort of a bit, ho hum about astrophotography because it's so disruptive to your life.
Yeah.
But if it's convenient, then
only when you don't have a life, Nick.
Yeah. if it's convenient and the conditions are good, then it's that's what makes me excited. But otherwise, it's hard to get me excited about.
Oh, it's hard work. It's really hard work if the conditions aren't on. So yeah, it's that's it. And do you do much astro work, Jeff, or is it more just during the like magic hour type thing?
No, I don't. I haven't delved into astro. probably partly to do with my lifestyle and it being too inconvenient. And yeah, no, I just haven't got
It's
into
often
it.
freezing as well
Yeah.
when you want to be out there as well.
Yeah, no, I haven't really got into it too much. And I don't know, it just doesn't grab me as much as other types of photography. So it works well because then I don't have to worry about getting up in the middle of the night, things like that. So having young kids makes it difficult too.
Yeah,
Jeff, just going back a step, like one of the things we want to learn is a bit about you, and you know, from what I understand, you made a very significant lifestyle choice from, you know, city-based and, you know, kind of commercial work sort of based life to moving into the heart of the alpine country of Victoria, which is a very classic and stunning part of the kind of cultural landscape of Australia, let alone the, you know, actual photographic landscape as well. And
Yeah,
I'm quite curious to know, like, that must have had quite a lot of thought in that decision and a lot of changes in terms of, you know, I don't know, income or lifestyle and community and your day-to-day life. And that's quite a big call to make and pull your family along for the ride. Could you tell us a bit more about that choice and that journey?
yeah. Well, so I grew up in Melbourne, born and raised there, and lived there up until about 2017. We moved up here, and before we moved up here, I'd never actually been up here. I hadn't come up with the folks, so I hadn't seen anything. So when we got here, my jaw just dropped, the landscape and seeing it. So, but yeah, getting back to, you know, moving up here, I've lived the typical corporate life, worked for a big finance company, financial planning, and yeah, never had any intention of moving to the country at all. Maybe when we were retired. But yeah, once we started having kids, or our first child, we started moving further out because we wanted to buy a house. And as you know, Melbourne house prices are astronomical, so we had to move pretty far out. So we were probably about an hour out of Melbourne. And I was traveling into work, probably doing 2 hours travel a day.
Wow.
Yeah, and it kind of got to the point where we started to think, you know, what are we doing? And, you know, we both kind of weren't enjoying what we were doing, mostly to do with, you know, living in the rat race and that sort of thing. So at the time, it was probably 2015, 2016, we just started to reassess things, and we actually stumbled across another podcast, these two American guys, don't know if you've heard of them, called the Minimalists.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and they'd released a movie at that time. Well, that was their first movie, and we started listening to their podcasts. And yeah, they were kind of in a similar situation. Corporate guys, you know, thought that the way to a happy life was, you know, earn as much money as you can and buy everything that you need and those sorts of things. Big house, a few cars and that sort of stuff. And they kind of got to a point where they were just like, you know, they've got everything they need, but they're just not happy. So yeah, they just reassessed their lives and kind of pared everything down. And yeah, a lot of that resonated with us at the time, what we were doing. So we started rethinking about what we were going to do, and kids are going to be going into school, and yeah, we just weren't sure about the area that we lived. And we came up to the high country, I think it was end of 2016, just for a trip, because my wife, her family had like a holiday house up here. So she'd come up here a lot as a kid. And yeah, so we just came up here, and at the time she was on maternity leave, looking to go back to work. And when we came up, we stayed up here only for a few days, and it was the first time I'd been up here. And there was actually a job going at the local primary in the town that we're in now. So we're living in Omeo. It's right in the heart of, I'll show you a map in a sec, of the high country, probably about 50 minutes from Mount Hotham. And there was a job going at the primary school, and she thought she'd just go for it. It was a bit of a joke and see what happens. It might be a bit of a push. And then we got back to Melbourne and I was back at work, and she sent me a message saying, "I got the job. What do you want to do?" So yeah, so it wasn't actually something that we'd had a lot of thought and planning went into, but it kind of pushed things really quick, and it kind of happened all at the right time, because the whole thing with the Minimalists that we were listening to, that really resonated with us. And I'm not sure if it kind of seemed like all the stars aligned at the right time. And I don't know if that would have happened, everything came together at the one time we would have moved, because we bought a house. We had like a big kind of like 4-bedroom house, and that everything that we wanted was in that house, but we just didn't like everything that was around it, just city life. So we sold the house and moved the girls up here, and it all happened really quick. I was going to stay down and keep working for about 6 months, but while Kate moved up here, but once she got up here, it was too chaotic, and so I just quit my job. And we just moved up, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So once we got here, I was just looking for work in the same kind of industry, but just contracting work. So I spent a lot of time. That's when photography really kicked off for me. Was 2017. I'd always had like a camera in my hand, but living in Melbourne, for me, there was nothing really that interested me enough to take it any further than just holiday snaps and stuff like that. So once we got up here, I brought the camera out, and I kind of just delved into it, because I didn't work for a bit. Once we got up here, I was looking for work. So me getting a job was delayed by me experimenting with my camera.
Well, just looking at the standard of your work, Jeff, you've done remarkably well for someone that hasn't been into it for that long, and it's very impressive. It's got a beautiful atmosphere to your work. And did you have to learn processing from scratch as well with the software and all that sort of thing?
Yeah. So I'd had a bit of a play around with Adobe products, but they were like Illustrator, and I don't know if you know Adobe Illustrator and those sorts of products, but it was more for graphic design work.
Yep.
But never used Photoshop or Lightroom. So so probably the first year, once we're up here, 2017, a lot of my time was just spent on YouTube. Just watching tutorials, and it's amazing how much stuff you can learn on there, even just like learning, with my camera. I hadn't used manual settings before and that sort of stuff. So again, that was stuff that I just learned from YouTube and getting out in the field and that sort of stuff. So so I guess the advantage that I had was that, and that I've still got, is that I'm a contractor up here, so I can kind of work my photography around contracting. So if the conditions are right, I can play that to my favor and that sort of stuff. But for the first year, I spent a lot of time invested in just learning everything. So processing and everything, photography, composition, studying people's work and that sort of stuff. So
must have been a really great
or type in particular that stood out. Sorry, Lucky. Like in terms of people that you really got a lot out of online, was there any particular class, favor, style, person that really stood out for you that you learned a lot from?
I bought some like tutorials from typical ones when you start out, like Ryan Dyer and that sort of stuff, American photographers. But I guess my transition, I didn't start doing the work that I'm doing now. I did the typical kind of big scenes, wide vistas, waterfalls, seascapes, that sort of stuff. Even though I'm not near the water, I was shooting a lot of that stuff. I was traveling down to Melbourne. Funny thing was, once I moved up here and I learned about my camera, I realized everything in Melbourne that I hadn't photographed. So I was traveling down there to get photos, and I had everything I needed up here. But I just went through that typical phase, I guess, of every kind of landscape photographer of you're seeing a lot of stuff that was on Instagram, so you're shooting the wide scenes and that sort of stuff. So the stuff that I'm shooting now, I think that kind of came into it probably in the last year or so, once I started to really want to move away from the large vistas and getting more intimate kind of scenes. That's the sort of stuff that I enjoy doing at the moment.
Fantastic. I was just going to mention, it must have been very, given it was the landscape itself that inspired you to move there, it must have been very fulfilling to actually then be able to go and explore it to a deeper level. And I guess when you're looking at those intimate compositions, you're really looking at it in very much detail to try and kind of pick the shots, which are often not easy to find. So yeah, and I'm sure the viewers will see a bit later on all of that beautiful work. So
yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, so when I started, you know, a lot of the stuff that I was looking at online and getting inspiration from was the iconic kind of places in Victoria and that sort of stuff, but I wasn't close to that. Up here, there's not really anything that's iconic, so you've really got to find your own images. You've got to find your own compositions. So that kind of probably pushed me down that path of, you know, yeah, really delving into what the high country is about and trying to find things myself, those sorts of things.
And that's one of the most rewarding things, I think, is when you can work your own things out rather than sort of going the path that's well trodden, and make your own little path, and not making any references there to degrading the environment, of course. But yeah, that's definitely a great thing to be able to do. And I do know what you mean about living in Melbourne. I actually had 5 years in Melbourne, and you're more aligned to shooting street photography and cityscape photography there. It is a very challenging city to really get right into the landscapes unless you're prepared to drive an hour plus, I suppose, every time you go on a shoot. Yeah, so that's or you're lucky like Tom Putton, you live down in the Mornington or something like that, where you're a little bit closer to it all. So yeah, so that's definitely a challenge. So,
or if you live with Mount Wellington out the window like we do, Lucky.
What was that? Sorry.
Well, you live with Mount Wellington out the window like we do.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
So how long does it take you to get up there?
All three of us. We're all looking at different angles of Mount Wellington.
Yeah, it doesn't take very long from the city. It's really, look, it's 10 minutes to Fern Tree, which will get you in the sort of the base of the mountain, and then another 10 minutes to 15 minutes up to the top, driving your car, of course. A lot on the way, and lots of walking trails all the way up. We're very, very lucky here in Tasmania when it comes to ease of.
You do make your own luck. I mean, you're lucky to have been born here, and I mean, Jeff's making his own luck by having moved there. So I mean, there's quite a lot of sacrifice sometimes involved in actually, or maybe not sacrifice so much, but just taking a bit of a leap of faith, and so that, you know, you do make your own luck in some respects. Yeah,
it's very true. You sort of have to go out of your comfort zone sometimes, and
not everyone can do it, but
Jeff, just before, sorry, you finished, Nick, or you still got?
No, you're right. Go ahead.
Just before we start looking at some images, which should be good to get onto, do you have a style or a feeling or certain qualities that you're aiming to introduce to your work? Because it does really stand out to me to have quite a specific kind of very clean, elegant feel and flavor to your work that seems to express itself across a lot of different subject matter. And to me, that's a sign of somebody who's getting to a point where they're mastering their craft and has a lot of their own personality and vision and behind their work. And you kind of attested to the last year, you're really starting to settle into that part of yourself. And I think all of us need to put in the yard, so to speak, to learn the camera craft before we can then really just lean on our own creativity and vision once we've moved past that. But you've got to do the work first. Do you feel like you're sort of getting to that point? And again, what are the sort of qualities and things you're really drawn to or aiming to express through your imagery?
Yeah, so I guess, in the 3 years that I've had, like I said, I've had a lot of time to invest into photography than the usual kind of weekend warrior, I guess. So I'm constantly analysing and thinking about what I'm trying to do. And I was always, like, for the first 2 years, I think, ahead of what I could do. So I was getting frustrated with, I was wanting to do this, but I just didn't know how to do it. And I just needed to spend more time out in the field and those sorts of things. And I had an idea of, like, you know, first time I came up here and saw the snow gums. I don't know if you've seen, you know, like how they change color and the bark and that sort of stuff. I've got some images I can show later. Like when I first saw them, I was just like, I've got to take those photos. And the first few outings were just complete disasters. They just look like snapshots. So I hadn't figured out how to actually do that. So yeah, a lot of it was me wanting to get these types of shots, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And I was like, well, what type of style am I looking to do? And I think once I just stopped overthinking that sort of aspect of it, I just started to create my own images. I wouldn't go out with a specific image in mind. I'm really going out when the conditions are right. And I'm just trying to go out, and anything that I see that takes my eye, I'll try and work as a composition or something like that. But yeah, I think I get bored easily as well. So I won't stick to any certain thing. There's just so much diversity up here. Like you see the high country in autumn, which we're coming into soon, the colors are just phenomenal. So I'll focus on that. And it doesn't have to be wide scenes or intimate scenes. And then when the snow hits, it's, you know, a completely different story. So the seasons change quite a lot up here, and it allows me to, I guess, diversify with my work as well, what I'm shooting, yeah.
How did you go with the fires up at Omeo? Were they pretty close by? A bit of been, didn't
Yeah, the recent ones, yeah. We got evacuated twice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they got quite close. They probably got about a couple of Ks out of town. It just dodged us. We were quite lucky. So, yeah, all our families back in Melbourne. So they gave us those daily fire meetings and those sorts of things, and they'd have CFAs coming up giving reports on when it was time to move and that sort of stuff. So you just had to decide whether you're willing to leave or stay. And you know, the majority of the towns stay because their lifestyles here, you know, they've got like generations, farmland and that sort of stuff up here. So they'd just stay and fight if they had to. But you know, we didn't really have too much of a tie to anything up here, like land or anything. So we just went down to Melbourne, and yeah, but it did get close. You know, it's an eerie feeling when the sky's just orange and the, you know, you got smoke in the air, and you know it's just around there. So yeah, good to not have that in the air this year.
Is that something that you've looked to explore photographically in terms of maybe documenting regeneration and that sort of thing, or you'd rather sort of stick to more happy scenes and from what is left, I suppose?
I did. I tried to do it, but I couldn't find what I was after. Yeah, it was something that I tried, but I don't know. It just didn't come out the way that I intended it to, and yeah, I don't think like the areas that are burnt pretty badly and where there is regeneration are pretty hard to get to around here. A lot of the high country can be explored in four-wheel drive. I don't have four-wheel drive, so there's still a lot for me to explore. But yeah, that was something that I considered at the time, but it was just too difficult to get to those areas.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should probably start seeing some of your
Yeah,
images.
absolutely.
Yeah, we'll start with the map, whichever you prefer, Jeff.
Yeah, I can show you the map, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Perfect.
All good.
All right.
Great.
So for anyone that doesn't know the high country where I am, so I'm in Omeo, which is just here.
That's right in the middle, isn't it?
5.5 hour drive from Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we plan our family trips back home.
Is the quickest way via the Gippsland or via the top way?
Depends where you are in Melbourne. So you can come over this way,
yeah,
over Hotham, or we usually come up through Gippsland through Bairnsdale. Yeah, it depends in Melbourne which way you are. You can either take the beam up there or go that way. So
getting out of town can be a large chunk of the actual time getting there. So yeah,
that's it. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so I thought I'd just show on here and around here, like in terms of Victoria, you kind of, you know, that line there is the Great Alpine Road. And I don't know if any of you have travelled along that, but from like Bairnsdale all the way through up to Omeo. It's a beautiful drive. Like that was a drive that I took the first time I came up here, and it's just, yeah, it's just stunning scenery. Unfortunately, a lot of that's been burnt out now, so which is a real shame. There's the Tambo River that runs all the way through that as well. So you've got like, you know, high cliffs, and the road just goes all the way, runs right through it. So farmland and that sort of stuff. So it's quite nice. But yeah, unfortunately, the fires ripped through that. A lot of it's starting to come back now, but we've had a lot of rain recently, which has been good this summer. So it's been good for farmers and so forth. But yeah, so that's the Great Alpine Road, and that goes, there's Omeo there. And I thought I'd just show it in terms of like my kind of stomping ground, where I spend a lot of time with the camera. So from Omeo going up to Hotham and Dinner Plain, it's about a 50-minute drive. So I spend most of my time probably around here, Falls Creek as well. But yeah, as you can see, in terms of the Alpine National Park, so that they're in the Alpine National Park, there's a lot there to explore. So I've only touched like a small part of it. And then you've got Bride up here, Port Punker, Mount Buffalo, a few other photographers there that you had on the show, Mika and Matt, that's it. So they're over there. Yeah. But yeah, beautiful part of the world too over there.
How far above sea level is Omeo itself?
We're about 700 meters.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you get snow at Omeo very often, or not really?
Since we've lived here in the last 3 years, we've probably seen like a trickle of it, and just once it hits the ground, it's gone. Once or twice. It used to snow. It used to snow quite heavily. But yeah, these days we don't see much at all. We've got to get up to at least, you know, Dinner Plain or Hotham to get real good deep snow shots. So, but we definitely feel the cold here.
How have you found the acclimatization? Did it take a while?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. The lifestyle as well. It's quite a bit of a change, like having to stock up on wood and that sort of stuff for winter, and you know that's a thing that you got to do. But yeah, it doesn't really bother us too much as long as you've got the fire running like 24/7. You kind of just yeah, you just keep inside for a few months, or like me, go out and don't get photos. Most people are inside and I'm out taking photos, but yeah, it can get bitterly cold. By the end of winter, you're really over it.
Yeah.
I don't know the feeling there after my very different down here from Sydney as well. So yeah, definitely. I think the altitude would change a lot though, of course, elevation that you're at as well. But yeah. So in terms of getting around from a drive time perspective, would it be about an hour and a half or something from Bairnsdale and that kind of thing, or a bit longer than that?
Yeah, about that. Yeah. Most of those roads are kind of windy.
Yeah.
Or that you can't really see it in there, but yeah, they're not like straight roads. So yeah, it's about an hour. It's about an hour 20 to Bairnsdale. So yeah,
right. Fantastic.
Yeah, right.
Just I guess you might have touched on it, but we had a question on YouTube just in terms of the areas of high country worth exploring. I think you mentioned a couple places. While we've got the map there, is there any sort of other areas of note that's well worth checking out?
Well, from the areas that I've checked out, like I still haven't been. So the thing with, I'll get people saying, "Oh, do you want to meet up here? Do you want to meet up here?" And it's like, well, on the map, it looks really close to get to, say, Mount Buller if I want to go to like Craig's Hut or something like that. Yep. But that's, you know, a good 4-hour drive because I've got to go all the way up here.
Oh, wow, yeah, of course.
So driving road-wise, unless you've got a four-wheel drive and you can cut across or something like that, it can be a bit of a nightmare. So I haven't explored a lot of these areas, but in terms of nice places for photography, Mount Buffalo is probably the best place to check out. You know, you got everything covered there from, you know, snow in winter, autumn, it's beautiful over there. You've got waterfalls there as well, but yeah, Hotham, Dinner Plain, Falls Creek, and that bright kind of Mount Buffalo area is probably the nicer places to start with if you haven't been up here before. So, yeah.
Seen some great shots from the Feathertop area. Is that near Hotham? Is that?
Yeah, Mount Feathertop is right at Hotham. Yeah,
part of that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one to look out for as well. All right, well, maybe you can show us some of your shots and let us know a bit about them and the process that you went to create them.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so I thought I'd just start with this shot. This is just one of Alpine Road, Great Alpine Road. So this is just down the road from me. So this is Swiss Creek, which on the map is just in there.
Okay.
So this photo is probably taken about there. And it's just, it's just beautiful scenery, just driving through here and, you know, in autumn and winter and stuff like that, you've got the fog and just sitting in these ranges and it's just beautiful. So, yeah, not my probably typical kind of work, but I do like I've got the creative side, but I also just like taking, you know, the vistas of the area because it is beautiful. It's a stunning place to, you know, with the camera, you can walk around just pointing the camera anywhere and you're getting beautiful shots. So, yeah.
Awesome.
So that's Mount Feathertop.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Sunrise. Yeah, so getting up to Hotham in winter can be, unless you're skiing, which I don't, you've got to pay to get into the national park. So I try and time it, try and do most of my shooting pre and post snow season, so I don't have to pay to get in there. But yeah, generally, you know, snow will continue past the snow season anyway. So this was one that I took a few years back, just after the snow season had finished. I could get up there in the morning. And it's something to do is so nice just going up there in the morning, no one up there and just watching the sunrise. It's just stunning.
Yeah, I guess everyone's there for skiing or all those sort of activities. So you're probably one of the weird ones going off to do something else.
Pretty much, yeah.
What's the shutter speed on that one, Jeff?
The
longish exposure? Or?
Yeah, well, I can't remember, to be honest. That cloud was just moving real slow just across.
It's just got such a beautiful flow about it. That's why I was asking.
Yeah. And the thing with Hotham, I don't know if it's the same with you guys up at Wellington, but the weather just changes so quick up there. It's so hard to forecast as well. So it can just say, you know, that the skies are clear, and by the time I get up there, the whole thing's just covered in fog and you just can't see anything. You know, you're driving like 20 k's an hour over the top just because you just can't see cars in front of you. So, yeah, it can be a challenge. But it does pay off though when you get up there and you see things like this. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that a sunrise or a sunset? Oh, it's just sorry, you've got it on the screen. Sunrise.
Yeah.
That's part of the joy of landscape photography, really. Though, just you know, the forecast is okay, but you get up there and then things are changing, and then things change again. I love being able to adapt to the conditions or try to adapt to the conditions. It's part of the joy of the photography, I feel.
Yeah, and I think that's what's made me like adapt as well, is to not have expectations and those sorts of things, especially up in the mountains and stuff like that, because things can change. And yeah, I just kind of went through a phase of having expectations and coming away being disappointed. Things didn't turn out the way I wanted, or you know, the sky didn't blow up the way I wanted it to. So yeah, I found adapting to just the conditions has proved to be more successful for me.
I guess that's where being stronger on those more intimate shots really helps too, because you know, if the grand scene's not working for you, you can always find a nice bit of detail to work instead, and still come away with a winner. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have to rely so much on skies and so forth. So
absolutely.
So this is one of the huts, part of the attraction, or what's the high country's known for, is the Cattleman's huts, and the main one is trying to remember, one out at Buller. I mentioned it before, but it was done
Craig's
for
Hut.
Craig's Hut, yeah, for the movie. I was just reading up about that the other day, that it got burnt down. They just had to put it back up, a replica, after fires ripped through there. So, but yeah, I went through a phase of wanting to photograph the huts up here. This is Cope Hut out at Falls Creek. Could be hard unless you're pretty fit to try and get these shots in the snow, because they close the road during winter.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, it's an advantage that I've got. If I know that there's snow predicted, I can race up there. I did that with this shot, like a day's notice. I saw snow was coming. It was about 3 days out from them closing the gate. So I got up there and managed to get this shot. But yeah.
So you're saying you got in there before they closed it, so you're in there already type thing, or?
Yeah. It was a couple of days before they closed the road, and once they close it at the start of the snow season and open it at the end of the snow season.
Oh, it's like a huge period of time when it's closed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, a few months. Yeah.
I guess that's
Yeah,
one of the
Oh, you go, Licky.
one of those big advantages when you do make the commitment to move to a particular place. So you do get sort of those, it opens up a lot more possibilities for those very last minute decision type scenarios. So yeah, just have to keep an eye on the conditions and run out there when you can.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah. That's the great thing about, well, one, being so close, but also having a job that allows me to run out and asking a notice if I have to.
Jeff, just to comment on this image, like, to me, there's these absolutely beautiful diagonals on the top that are mirrored by the trees and in the background and the main branches. But what really strikes me beautifully and what ties us together from front to back so well is that mirroring of those yellows and the window frames and in the tree and the cool tones and mottled nature of the hut matching the mottled nature of the bark. It's just so gorgeous how that ties together.
Yeah, I've got another shot of this where it's just towards the end of summer, and I had that shot first, so I kind of visualized it beforehand, because there's no color in the tree. They're just the bark itself, like here, it's just all grey. If you've seen them when they don't have the color, and it just doesn't work nearly as well as this image does. It just the white, I like how the white kind of accentuates the color in the tree and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess they'll get lost in the earthy tones in the ground sort of blending in with the tones in the tree, which now it creates a separation with the snow, doesn't it? That's right. Yeah. This is all just grass, overgrown grass, and the snow kind of just flattens it all out.
It has that wonderful effect of simplifying the landscape, doesn't it, when you have some snow? So
yeah. I love shooting.
Looks fresh, mate. I hope you had your gloves on.
Oh yeah.
So this is just up at Hotham, just the layers, like getting the telephoto out, just shooting the layers up at Mount Hotham, the top. It's just beautiful when the sun setting, and you can just focus in on just the layering, just never ending. Yeah.
Do you tend to find I guess you'd have most of these scenes to yourself as well, so there's a nice kind of just that feeling of solitude and taking it all in as well?
Yeah. So it's kind of strange, because I really got into photography only since I've been up here, and that's another thing I noticed is pretty much every single shoot I go on, I'm on my own. There's no one up here at all. So when I went down to Melbourne for the first time, it was probably a year after I got into photography, I think I went down to the Great Ocean Road, and it was just like, oh God.
Oh goodness.
I couldn't handle it.
It's like the worst place to go to go step back into the fray.
But yeah, I think that's there's a number of different elements that I'm really inspired by, just the area, and one being that I can really immerse myself in the landscape, because I don't have any distractions up here. There's no one else shooting around here. When I'm going out, people usually own the locations that I'm going to. Like if I'm going out during the snow season, I'll be walking through snow and bushland and stuff like that, and everyone's up at the the snow runs and stuff like that. So I don't have anyone around, and it's just dead quiet usually. So I can really focus on what I'm doing, as opposed to if I'm going somewhere else and there's people around, which most photographers have to deal with. I think I've had the benefit of doing it up here so much that if I go somewhere and there's one or two other people, I struggle with it.
I know the feeling, mate. I'm very similar myself down here, very spoilt.
Yeah.
But things are changing, and if you pick the wrong spot at the wrong time, you'll certainly get swamped as well. But I try and avoid those places in the high season as when I can. But I really do struggle if there are a lot of photographers around. I just don't want to be there. It's just because I've started off with it. This is a solitary sort of thing, and if there are a lot of other people around, it gets to me straight away.
And I'm probably on the other side of the fence there, where I started like photographing in groups or with friends and things. So I'm always quite keen to photograph with other people. So I think there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to this. It's just whatever experience you're looking for and what you're going to take from that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like, because I don't have anyone up here, I do crave going out with people, catch up with people that I've met on Instagram and stuff like that. When they come up here, I'll go out, try and catch up with them. But usually it's going out to catch up with them and, go on a shoot. But I just can't get into like a real creative mode with other people around. So I'll kind of treat it like I'm just going out, like catching up for a beer, but with a camera. That's just how I treat it. But I do crave that as well. But yeah, shooting for me is just primarily just I get into the right flow, I guess, flow state. Some people refer to it as, if I'm just on my own.
Is there much of a community up there, Jeff? Like you talked about being isolated, but obviously you haven't been there for that long. And I'm talking about photographic community. I meant, like, you really feel like you're on your own, or there's a few players, or you're still figuring it out, or?
There's one or two, but they're not. One or two photographers, but they kind of just keep to themselves. That they're not on like Instagram. Not that Instagram's everything, but they kind of just. It's a different type of photography. It's probably more just. I don't know how to explain it.
Or documentary, or
sort of, yeah, I guess, yeah. But no, I wouldn't say anyone similar to myself. The closest is probably like Mika and Matt, but they're over in Bright, which is a fair drive.
What is that, like 2 hours or
2.5?
2.5, yeah.
Yeah.
They're good people to spend time with, though, if you get the chance.
Yeah, I've been speaking to Matt a little bit. Yeah. It's good to do some moved over here now.
Hey, speak for yourself. we miss him.
But yeah, photography community, I wouldn't say there is much up here. So the best I've got is when people come up from Melbourne, something like that.
It's one reason why it's good to have that social media there, so you can still interact with other great photographers around the place too. And I know that you're somewhat active on Instagram and all of that, and I know that some of my friends are very big fans of yours and share a lot of selections with each other and things like that. So it's really good to to have things like that when you feel like you might be a bit more isolated. You're not actually on your own when you've got those sort of connections, which is really good.
Oh yeah. It's particularly great for that. Like, Instagram's good for some things, but not so great for other things. But it's great for building relationships and sharing your work and those sorts of things, which before that you just wouldn't have had a chance of doing that at all. So yeah, there's people that I've met that I just would not have met if they didn't have that photography interest. It's interesting the people you can meet, but outside of photography, you probably don't have anything in common. But it's definitely good for that.
Definitely one of the best parts about photography is the people you meet, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
Different way of looking at it, but I mean, I'm not Australian, so I'm not as familiar with the really older history of Australian photography, but I would assume that some of that would have centered around that area because it's just so incredibly iconic and photogenic. And I don't know if any of you guys have much of a sense of the history of photography up in that region.
I don't, to be honest, not much of the history side of things. I have like Googled photographers that have done like projects on the Alpine regions, but they're not people that live here. They will come here and probably come during, a certain period like snow season or something like that, and they'll document it from there and then, head back home kind of thing. So, generally the people I've seen that have done books and work on it is usually people that will come and then go.
I just had a question from YouTube from Robert. Just I think it's referring back to one of the last shots around when the gates were closed for that particular hut. Is there an actual date that they actually set for that, or is it more just like a play-by-ear kind of scenario?
There is. I'm pretty sure it's the second. I think it's around the second week of June.
Okay, so it's something you could probably look up in any case.
Yeah. You can just go on like Vic Roads, and they have the closure on there every year. But it usually coincides with snow season. So from like June till end of August.
The snow season does change, like the official snow season, depending on when the big dumps are, or I think that was the case in New South Wales sometimes.
It's generally around the same time of year. They might extend it if they've got like a really good snow season going, if the snow dumps continue late into the year, but generally it's around the same time of year.
Awesome. Let's see some more. Oh, I love this photo, mate. This is fantastic.
Yeah, so this was up in one of the times that I went up.
Oh there. Yeah, we chose that as the cover shot. It was just like, oh, gotta go here.
Yeah. So this is just up right at the top of Mount Hotham. We're heading down towards Bright, just off the road, and yeah, just one of those times, and it was up there, and it's just the fog is just so thick. Like I took a lot of photos on that day, and some of it was just too intense. It was just the photos that you just couldn't see anything. But yeah, again, it's just learning how to kind of play with the fog and the light that comes through. I like that kind of patch of light that was kind of coming through. It leads your eye through there.
It makes the photo. It's what pulls you through the frame and gives it depth.
Yeah. This is just outside of Omeo. So during like autumn and winter, we're in this kind of bowl where we just have this fog that just sits throughout the whole town. Sometimes it can sit there till about lunchtime. So photography wise, I'm kind of set for a lot of the morning up until lunch. But yeah, this fog is just so thick. So going out with the telephoto is just waiting for a few openings and trees in the distance, just on the hill, just look like a great shot to get.
Yeah, they're great mornings. Those mornings, getting out there in the mist, and like you said, the telephoto lens really helps with those sort of isolation shots too. I mean, wide angles are great as well, but only the last couple of years I've really sort of found myself shooting a lot more telephoto, and this is sort of shot here that I'm sort of looking for all the time. Do you use the telephoto more than the wide angle, or it's a bit of this, bit of that?
Yeah, these days I'm probably using I've got a 24 to 105 that I'm using probably most of the time. But this was shot with a 100 to 400, which I went through a phase when I bought that. Just living up here with the mountains and stuff like that. I needed that reach. But yeah, I went through a phase where I was using that. That was just staying on my camera the whole time. I've got a 16 to 35 as well, but I rarely use that these days.
So I'm guessing you might be a Canon user with those focal lengths?
I used to be. No. Sony.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, dear.
I'll still talk to you. Luke and you'll be better friends now.
I was thinking of moving because my last year my Sony A7R3 died. Too much shooting in the rain and snow.
Oh, I didn't like that.
No.
Oh,
I
that's
was just a bit too laid back with it and just prayed that the ceiling was good, but it wasn't. So yeah, I was thinking about moving, and I was just too invested in the lenses, and I was actually thinking of doing the R5 like you, Paul, but
Oh yeah.
I just couldn't do it, so I just went with the R4.
it's an expensive exercise to change
It is.
camera systems, and look, I'm sure Paul will probably agree with me, especially now that Canon are out of their small rut that they're in. That if you just stick by your chosen camera brand, they'll come through with the goods. You'll end up with something that you want, and probably that particular brand will be the brand that's on top as such.
But my God, did Canon make people wait? I mean, that was a crazy wait.
That was like an 8-year wait. I know, because I did it.
Only the tough survived that one. Geez.
Yeah, but I had similar with Nikon and them waiting forever to go to a full frame camera, and suddenly one day they just suddenly went, okay, here's a 36 megapixel camera, and it was amazing.
That's when because Sony came out with a sensor, and they thought it would be pretty good in their camera. So
it was a sensor designed by Nikon and manufactured by Sony. Luke, I think you'll find.
Okay.
But yeah, basically, if you just stick with your brand, you've got the lenses. It's extremely expensive to change, and look, you'll be right. You'll get something good in the end.
Oh yeah, once I got my Sony R3, like I was pretty happy, and like I went through that phase of getting on YouTube and looking at all these reviews, and you get kind of caught up in it, and then I didn't care about it at all until my R3 died, and I thought, well, maybe and then I just got sucked into it again and started looking at all these reviews, and I was like, no, I'm not going to get caught up in this. I just couldn't be bothered going through the process of selling on my lenses either.
Yeah,
I just couldn't be bothered with it.
It would be much challenging too when you're not in town like that. Talking, people want to see it in the flesh or something. It's just not going to happen, really, is it?
Yeah. Like I go down to Melbourne maybe once every month or two, but I was eager to get back out because the camera had died. So I wanted to organise something quick. So R4's great.
Yeah, look, if in the end, if the camera is holding you back for some particular reason, if you've got a really good reason to change, then that's when you need to change. But for most people, it's really just a matter of gear lust, I think. That something a bit shinier comes along. But if you just wait, eventually you'll have a reason to upgrade that body to the latest and greatest, and you won't have to sell all your lenses. So it's an interesting roundabout that some people go on. There are some photographers that I know that have changed brands 3 or 4 times in 10 years, and I just think it's a bit crazy. It's gonna cost a lot of money if you're going to do that sort of thing. Everything loses value, and although lenses hold their value reasonably well, but still you're going to lose hundreds and hundreds of dollars, no doubt, if not thousands.
Pretty much all the big brands have got excellent cameras these days anyway.
I'd never say anything bad about any major camera brand. We often sort of have a bit of a snipe about Sony and Canon, Nikon and all that, but they're all very, very similar in terms of quality and in terms of the quality of their lenses. And there's always going to be something that's great about Sony that Nikon don't have, or something that Nikon have that Canon haven't got yet. But it just goes around in circles, and eventually it equals out. And
that's right. Yeah,
sticking with.
Yeah, no, it all does the job for me. Everything I need, like in terms of focal lengths, I've got from 16 to 400. So and I like the lenses. The camera bodies, apart from the weather sealing on the R3 was pretty terrible. R4's a bit better. I've just got to look after it better. But other than that, everyone complains about the menus on Sony, but once you get used to it, it's fine. As long as you figure out how to use it, you know what to do. It's just,
if a Sony was the first camera you ever bought and you stuck with Sony, then you'd be perfectly happy with the Sony menus. I mean, it's just how it works.
Yeah.
If you change from one brand to another, then you're going to end up with a different menu system and something that you don't like. And yeah, it's hollow complaining most of the time from people. Yeah.
All right, move on to
Oh, wow.
just up in Dinner Plain. It was one of the shots that I did want to get, was getting a Brumby in the snow.
Ah, how often do you come across them, Jeff?
Not often, because I don't stray too far out. I don't even have like snowshoes, which I want to get this year.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Don't go out too much, but you do see them around. You definitely see them around, but I definitely wanted one in the snow, and that took me a while. And this was actually just driving up to Dinner Plain. This is just outside of Dinner Plain, about 20 minutes from Mount Hotham. And I pulled over on the side of the road because I spotted this guy just sitting there or standing there. And I got out and I was mindful that he had his eye on me, and I knew he was going to bolt. So I had to do everything real quick. I got the lens on the camera, walked over there, framed it up real quick, handheld, and just fired that one off. And about 5 or 6 seconds after I fired that off, from behind these bushes, about 6 Brumbies walked out, just stood there all staring. And I kind of repositioned myself to get into a better shot because I thought they're just going to stay there. And as soon as I was about to fire off a shot, they all just bolted, just got the hell out of there. And I was just, it would have been, because they were all kind of like looking to the side. So it just would have been a nice shot. But I do like the single one just sitting there, just kind of.
What's the current status of them? Like, how are they viewed by, local community? And I've heard of campaigns to cull them, and I'm a little bit out of touch now in terms of how they're placed in terms of their landscape and politically and culturally.
Yeah, so the locals obviously aren't in favour of it, but I think it's actually been put on hold for a while. I think some sort of campaigning is done. So I'm not sure if it was something to do with the bushfires. They want to retest and see how much damage you're actually doing to the land, because that's the reason why they're looking to cull them. But yeah, I think it's been put on hold for a short time, but nothing is really, I don't think much has really changed since mid last year. Yeah.
It's an interesting situation because they're obviously, iconic is the word often used for Brumbies in the high country of Victoria and New South Wales. But the fact is they're introduced. They're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And my understanding from reading quite a bit about it at one stage, that it's the damage done to the alpine marshland and bogs that's of particular concern. And I've seen lots of pictures of the actual hoof damage that's caused to these bogs. And I know, knowing Tasmanian alpine sort of boggy areas, I don't think
very fragile.
Yeah, they're extremely fragile, and our country wouldn't take too well to horses either. Having said that, some of our alpine country was highly cattle grazed ages ago, and same with the Victorian and New South Wales high country. Cattle grazing was a big thing, and that sort of stopped now. And I think the country, particularly in Tasmania, has recovered a bit, although some of that's now under threat from feral deer, which is becoming a massive issue here in Tasmania, and I'm hoping they do something about it pretty soon. But yeah, I think that's the crux of it, basically, that they're introduced, they cause a lot of damage, but a lot of people have an emotional connection to them, and they're horses, so they're sort of seen in a slightly different light to if you were shooting feral pigs, for example, I would imagine. But
that's basically it. Yeah, and I think they've put something towards the government to see if the actual with the damage that was done by the fires up here, if they're still going to be causing as much damage as what they're proposing or something like that. So, but yeah, it's an issue. Which, you know, that they got quite close to actually having them come up here and start trying to shoot them. So, yeah, at that time I thought maybe this shot is the last one I'll get.
It's a beautiful shot though, and it's beautifully framed.
Yeah,
and everything's worked out really well for you there, and it's just got a great atmosphere. And just on that and processing, do you use an Orton effect or anything like that? What's sort of the way you would approach something like this with processing? You know, it's got a very delicate feel to it.
Yeah, I use Orton sometimes, not too much. I probably do like half my processing in Lightroom, half of it in Photoshop. Like a lot of my images are pretty much, you know, I'm not doing any kind of real complicated stuff. Like the most complicated thing I'm doing is luminosity masks. So, but yeah, I guess, you know, probably going back to your question before, Paul, about what kind of theme or what do I like to produce in my image. I do like having, say, like a quieter kind of look to or feel to my scenes compositions. So, you know, and that's not just in processing, but also the compositions as well. So, yeah, it was to kind of portray that in the snow as well, and probably desaturate some of the colors a little bit too with this one.
No, it's got
not too much contrast and those sorts of things. Yeah. So this was, this tree is just outside my house.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
One of my favorites so far, Jeff, actually.
Sorry?
This has been one of my favorites so far. That the color palette just appeals to me and range on so many levels. And
so I've got quite a few shots that, you know, I don't do too much like hiking or anything like that, and a lot of my shots are not too far. I don't have to travel too far from. This is a good example, just outside the house. But this was just after this tree. I'm not even sure what kind of tree it is, but the whole tree, it's a massive tree, and it's just all the bark just flakes, and that's just after a rain. These greens, the colors just come out after it's being drenched in water. It's just bizarre. We've got quite a few of them in the street. And yeah, just when I saw it, I was just the color palette and the flaking
layering.
Did you have to do any focus stacking for that, or is it?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
I might have done 2 or 3 images because it kind of bends around here.
Yeah,
but that's pretty flat there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a pretty big tree, and I was right close in on that. So, with some of these kind of like real tight in shots, I'm pretty lazy with that sort of stuff as well. Focus stacking and that sort of stuff. So if I can avoid it, I try to. Some of it's a little bit soft on the side.
Don't have to be lazy with Nick's camera or my camera, I don't think.
Still have to put it together.
Oh no, Ellie focuses the dream.
It's pretty simple. It's not hard.
Up till 5 months ago, I never went near it with a barge pole, Jeff, so because of that reason. So I'm celebrating the opposite quite a lot at the moment at this stage of my career. Finally started doing it, first time ever.
In-camera focus stacking or something, is it?
Yeah.
I
think Olympus might have been the first to bring it out. I know D850 pulled it out, and I was like, whoa! And then the R5 chucked it in there, and it's it's just so functional because I just do it by hand without tripods and just and I use Helicon focus, and it's
been on my Sony wish list for a long time. I've even given it to the Sony guys and everything, but it's
I think I timed it.
Priorities.
Timed it yesterday. It took me 25 seconds to focus stack, finish, export, bring back into Lightroom, like a 8 stacked image, and I was just like, oh, that's not really very stressful at all.
Nice.
No, it's funny you should say that, Jeff, about, you know, you're looking for the easier way when doing photography, and I think I avoided focus stacking for that exact same reason. That
Yeah,
it was a bit complicated. Well, not complicated, but a bit just
it's a hassle.
I can't be bothered sort of thing. And yeah, then I got the Nikon D850, and I had done like a couple of images like total focus stacked before I got the D850, and then I read about this headline feature that it had, and I thought, well, that sounds pretty interesting. And in practice, it's absolutely magnificent. It doesn't combine the images together. It just, you set the focus at the nearest object that you want to focus on, and then you tell it how many shots you want to take and give it an arbitrary sort of amount to focus each time, and then it just does it. And so for a landscape sort of shot where you've got a close foreground, you might take 3 or 4 shots, which the camera does all automatically and does it in milliseconds. I mean,
Instantly.
if you've got a short enough shutter speed, then, you know, if you're just say 1/60th of a second and you're shooting 5 shots, it'll do the whole thing in probably 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, really. Jeez.
Or less. Yeah, it's almost instant.
Done. And it's
Nick, a quick side note, but I am curious. There is actually a boundary in the R5 where it won't do that on shutter speeds over half a second.
Oh, really?
I found that Andrew told me about it, and I tested it out in the field with Lukey last week, and it was just like, oh, do you have a restriction on the 850 like that?
Nope. No.
Yeah.
You can take whatever exposures you like.
Yeah, I found that quite strange. And
That is
unlike the
odd.
850, it wasn't a headline feature. I didn't even know it existed. I found it on the menu by accident, like a month after I bought the camera. I never even heard of it.
Yeah.
So it was a super bonus for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, and look, particularly for detail work and macro work, it's a no-brainer. If you're shooting fungi or any macro work and you're doing focus stacking, then you'd be absolutely mad not to get this thing or get a camera that has it. Having said that, Sony doesn't have it now. It's a reason to change.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Careful what
Still
you
do it
say.
manually, of course. It's
Although I have
not
just bought a
not
macro
as fun
lens, so
doing it like the cool kids do.
Look, I reckon the next generation of Sony, and look, they come out with a new generation every 3 weeks, will no doubt have focus stacking as a feature. But
I don't know about that. I've been wanting to have fully functioning touchscreen for ages, and there's certain things that just don't seem to register, unfortunately. So without sounding too cynical, I'm not holding my breath. One thing I do wish happens, it would be really nice if Lightroom actually supported focus stacking and in terms of putting it together as well, and putting it together in a DNG would be really nice. So I'm sure that's probably on the cards. So that'd be
Can they do it as a firmware update?
In Lightroom, they might do it.
No, like with a Sony camera, could they do it as a firmware update, or does it have to be something that's
Sony don't tend to add features through a firmware update. They tend to correct anything that the general user base arcs up about very, very loudly. They'll correct, but otherwise they'll add that as a new reason to get the next camera. So without sounding cynical again, but that certainly not like Fuji or others where they will tend to actually give more features even on current existing cameras. So there is obviously little bits and pieces that Sony may add in there and here and there, but it generally tends to be a new camera scenario.
It's
just generally very little backward compatibility as well. So they'll add a new feature, but it won't be available on the previous camera as well. So it's definitely a planned obsolescence kind of scenario there, I think. But anyway, it's where you sell cameras.
Just to let our viewers off the hook so they don't all feel terrible on it, those specific cameras. To me, I mean, I've had a 20-year career and I've never used it until a few months ago, and it's been fine. So for online work, where most of us show our work, you probably won't even notice, unless you're doing really, really close sort of macro work or funky work, maybe a little bit. But just stick to your hyperfocal length and focus a third of the way in, and push stop your aperture down, and you're going to get a pretty good shot regardless. Most of sort of 85-90% of the time. So.
You
So yeah,
have to focus.
don't get too caught up in our little quirky details.
Oh,
I guess it really comes down how big you want to print things and how much detail you want, and
But
you know, if people are going to be
print
putting their
really
head right up against
comes
the
in.
pictures, looking at all the pixels and stuff. So and that's
Pixel
what,
peeping prints,
Yeah.
yes, you'll notice.
yeah. Instagram
Oh.
won't notice.
No. Oh, glorious.
This tree is just again another one just kind of just down the road from me, and I'd photographed it a number of times.
Oh my God.
I just love this kind of claw in a way that has these like things hanging around the just the color of the lichen.
Is it lichen on there?
Lichen, yeah, I don't know how to say it, lichen, yeah. And it gets more intense as it moves into the cooler months. But I took this in just as the sun had gone down, and kind of into blue hour, and this just stood out so much with the darker background because that's just all quite intense back there. I've got another shot of it as well. That's just another version of it, different part of the tree.
Wow.
It's kind of like just embracing the chaos.
And yeah, you've done very well to make sense of such a chaotic scene, particularly the first shot. It really, it's very hard sometimes to get that sort of isolation, and simply by using the colour that you have, or highlighting the colour that you have, you've managed to achieve it really beautifully. Yeah, so that, to me, that sort of shot, that's a real achievement to be able to get a shot like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a very difficult thing to do. So yeah, you've done really well.
And that tree's gone now as well. So I just saw it tumbled over. Yeah, so it's unfortunate because it was a weird tree, and I wanted to have another go at it. But yeah, anyway, these things do happen.
Well, you've immortalized it beautifully, Jeff. So well done.
Let's do like a bit of a black and white series, like up at Hotham as well. So there's just a few shots, just kind of showing like this cloud that just moves in and out, and every few seconds that would just be covered in fog, and then just the light coming through. It's amazing how much it changes up there so quickly. It's another one, the burnt trees from the 03 fires that ripped through Mount Hotham.
So
Yeah,
when were they, those ones?
Say that again.
Were they the most recent fires, or?
No, so
03's
03 that went all through and ripped through all of Mount Hotham. So I don't know if you've been up there, but I think
that looks very, very similar to the slopes around Falls Creek as well.
Yeah, similar. Yeah, just all these burnt.
Looks like the same area.
Trees.
I call them like ghost trees, like they're just
ghost trees. Yeah, ghost gums. Yeah.
Because I mean they're they literally died like 20 years ago, and yet they still have an amazing sense of presence. And, in the landscape, it's in such a stunning, eerie sort of way.
It is. Yeah, it is quite eerie up there. Yeah. And that's actually just the light kind of hitting those trees, especially here. That's what I kind of captured with that line, just hitting the ridges.
Yeah, I've got a few of my favourite images on that area were dappled light shots of the ghost trees, and I also went monochrome with them too.
Yeah. This is just a kind of creative shot that I took. I still haven't really achieved what I want to with autumn around here, but this one I kind of like the idea of the end of autumn with the leaves falling into the river.
Very thoughtful shot, Jeff.
Yeah, the reflections of the trees, just telling the story. I guess it's just the last leaves of autumn there. So, and the color kind of harmony of the yellow and the blue.
Yeah, lovely placement and
positioning. Yeah, as you say, Paul. Yeah.
Oh, I don't have any shots like that. Well done, brother.
There you go, Paul.
Work on it.
Inspiration.
No, me up, Jeff.
In work.
Come on.
Just another one. So this tree is kind of similar in the area to the one that I showed just before, but again, this is just kind of like the scenes that we get in the mornings during winter, where it's just the fog. It's just so intense. I had to wait for that kind of tree to appear, and I wasn't too far in front of it.
Mm. Is that a frost as well, or just?
Yeah. We get pretty intense frosts up here.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful.
Who's just wandering through the snow? I just captured this little bit of bark just sitting in the snow.
So unusual. And that's that sort of slight dark area at the top. Is that just, is it fog or cloud? It's quite interesting in terms of.
It's actually like a bit of a branch. It's like right in the distance of the tree. Yeah.
Huh. Because it almost feels, almost has a feeling like it's shot in a studio or something. It's quite interesting like that. Like the context looks a bit surreal, which is something I really enjoy about it, actually. Starting to get my judging hat on. I just got invited to judge today for Silver Linings, and I was like, I can feel my brain starting to get back into that mode again.
I saw that you're a judge for CapShare as well.
Oh, actually, yeah, I was doing that this afternoon, actually. Yeah, doing I don't know, maybe the 5th or 6th time now, the emerging work. I've only got 1,000 images to go through. Four categories. Love it. Oh, actually, I actually did today.
Did you?
I did.
Okay. All right.
I shouldn't say that, but no. Rewind, delete. Wouldn't have a clue.
Now, tell me, are these trees trees that other people have photographed as well, these particular ones?
Other people
there's a lot of shots with the same sort of look coming from Charlotte's Pass and areas in New South Wales, maybe.
Potentially, yeah, maybe. These are just like, there's just these trees are just littered across the mountain range up at Mount Hotham. So, and you can see there the snow, just because the winds up there are just so intense, it just sticks to it.
Jeff, in terms of accessing, say, Hotham Falls, I think, and Buller, like, I think, is there like a daily fee now that's fairly considerable in a bunch of them, or?
Yeah, $50 a day just to get in.
Ooh. Think and that's per car, like, so you could bring 4 up maybe, or?
Yep.
All right, so not as bad if you share, but I think it's quite significant for
Yeah,
a daily fee.
Yeah. So like I might spend like choose 2 days towards the end of the season when the snow's pretty deep, and I might go up there and invest a bit.
Do you think is that there to actually literally reduce numbers and impact on the park?
They say it's to cover all the road maintenance and the workers and everything up there, clearing the snow and stuff like that. But they still charge the same fee during coronavirus, and there was no one up there.
Yes, because to me that's enough that it's almost a deterrent. So
yeah,
that's why I was wondering if that was part of the strategy.
I think it's more that they know people are going to go there, so that's a captive market, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's when they make their money. So and that's not even like lift passes or anything like that. That's just to get in. So
so if you want to go skiing, it's extra again. Wow.
Oh yeah.
And then the comms right up there because it's so in demand. So
yeah.
It's a sort of a scenario that we've got all over Australia a bit, where rather than having natural areas as somewhere that everyone can access and is well funded, basically the funding is coming from those that wish to access the parks on a user pays sort of system, which has its merits in some ways and has its downsides in others. I mean, I can understand that they would probably have too much traffic up there if it was free to get in winter. I'm talking about, I suppose, but it's a
through road.
It wouldn't be the parks that's charging, is it? It's more of a local facility, because I thought all parks in Vic were free to enter.
It's the Resort Management Board.
Yeah.
But it's a through road, so you can still cross it because they've got gates and cameras at either end. So if you need to get to Bright, for example, you don't have to pay. But they've got a time limit on how long you can spend in there, and it's you've got enough time to probably jump out of your car, take a snap, and then that's it.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah,
Is it a private road then? I'm just trying to get my head around how a resort is. Is it a government run resort or is it a private resort?
it's private.
And it's a through road. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I would have thought the government would be maintaining the road and being a government road network would be free. But anyway, interesting.
Yeah, I don't understand how it all works, but
I'm sure there's
yeah,
reasons.
strange one.
I'm
but
sure there's
yeah.
reasons, and I'm sure I'm ignorant about them. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I haven't been there, so I don't know how these things work. But yeah, that is very interesting.
But there is a tip for the listeners as well. If they're in the area during winter, you can actually get up there. They allow you to get in there for free after 3 o'clock. So you can get up there for a bit of shooting, depending on the conditions and so forth. So that's always an option as well.
So it's really aimed at skiers, isn't it? I mean,
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's aimed at skiers.
All you really need now is to petition for a photographer pass, and I think she's all good.
Yeah. Well, they do have discounts for locals,
Okay.
but it's like ski passes and stuff like that. But it's still not worth it unless I'm like selling, prints and making the money to cover me to get in there kind of every day or something. It's yeah,
interesting.
All right. So yeah, the last few that I've got is this kind of series that my latest kind of series that I did on the snow gums. So this was something that I kind of worked on for a while, and a lot of failed attempts. Most of them are shot up around Mount Hotham, but yeah, a lot of it was just capturing the like unique shapes and colors of these trees. They're just so unusual. And just capturing them in the right environment in the fog, thick fog, is the only way to get these. This is still a bit of a busy scene, but some of my other ones, really, it's the only way you can capture them. And that's why I failed so many times, because I was capturing them in the wrong conditions. But once you get up there in the fog, you can get some really nice shots of just these.
Yeah, I was listening to a chat on Clubhouse of all places about woodland photography, and they, the sort of the premier woodland photographers over there in the UK, they'll find their scene wandering around, and they'll know that it works well in fog and just come back and execute it from there. So it's a very well planned affair from that perspective. And if you happen to be just lucky enough to have the right conditions, obviously can be opportunistic, but yeah, there's quite a bit of planning and forethought in quite a lot of those images that you see.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So like, I've got the benefit that I can know when, look at the weather apps and know roughly when there's going to be, thick fog up there, and I can get up there. But for most people, if they're coming from Melbourne, it's just impossible to plan. So I do have that benefit of being able to get up there within 45 minutes and start shooting. So
awesome.
Luke, we might get you to talk about Clubhouse towards the end, because I'm interested to hear about it. And I hear you need an invitation.
You need an Apple phone.
Yeah, we've been meaning to have a chat offline about that with you, Nick, but we're certainly keen to bring talking landscape photography to Clubhouse as well in a different sort of format. So stay tuned for that.
I'm so excited.
I know. Well, yeah, Luke and I had a brief chat about it last night, actually, and to the point where we're even trying to find access to another iPhone that you could potentially use to be part of it. So, but it's a new idea and something we're just playing around. But it's a platform that I find it's very new. It's growing very rapidly.
There's not a lot of Australian side to it, and it gives us the ability to talk to the US a lot easier as well. So it's quite.
It has a very international flavour, and it gives. What I like about it is you have this accessibility to people you could almost like feel like you're in the same room with, that are potentially the best of the best of what they do in the world, and that's quite interesting.
Before we carry on any more, just so people know what you're talking about, just why don't you just give a brief overview of what this thing is?
I'll let Lucky do that.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a so I guess it's a new social media platform on iOS, which is it's all about audio. There's no video whatsoever. There's not really even a chat as such. Like with Zoom, you have a chat on the back, and even we've got comments running on YouTube. It's purely audio based, and you basically can raise your hand, and the speaker can bring you up to the stage, and you can say a bit. And obviously, the speaker needs to know who they're letting in, just so that it all flows well. But the idea is that you can have a chat about pretty much any topic, and it's very free flowing, and it is really amazing. I think I listened to another one the other day that had Chris Picard on there, and it's almost like every day there's a different photographer speaking. Very much more, I guess, like be chatting to them on the phone rather than it being a sort of often you just see them as a piece to camera or something like that. So it's a lot more. It's very ad lib and all of that sort of thing. So,
but it's quite conversational and a lot of sort of powerful discussion and fairly interactive. There are controls around how that interaction is managed to some extent, but it's like a glorified chat room would simplify it, I guess, in people's minds.
But
and
it's only on
accessibility to people.
It's only on iOS. Get access to. I'm sure that they're working hard to get it on Android, but most those sort of complicated systems start up on iOS just because of the user base, and I guess the system across the phones is a bit more standardized, I'd guess. So,
and it's invite only, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I do have 5 invites.
Oh no! Once you're in, you're in. It's just a single. Like somebody pops up to offer to invite you within like 1 minute of like getting on. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a sense of exclusivity around it.
It's obviously a marketing sort of grab that it's some sort of exclusive.
It would also restrict their servers
no cost
being
involved.
Totally overwhelmed in flashes and things like that too. Yeah. So there'd be other reasons, I think. But exclusivity always makes people interested, I think. So
or disinterested like me.
Fair enough, Nick.
It just makes
humbug to you too.
Seriously, it makes me cynical. It's just one of those things that grinds my gears. Just open the damn thing up if you're going to open it up and stop.
I'm sure it will. It's just it's just got to hit a critical mass. I think it's pretty critical now, to be honest. I think there's millions of people on there. So I note that you haven't sent me an invite, but I don't have an iPhone, so that's that would have been rubbing it in if I sent it to you and you didn't have one, wouldn't it? So
anyway, let's get back to Jeff, because this is a great. I love this photo, Jeff. It's a beautiful snow gum, and the curve there, it's just so sensual and flowing.
These reds as well. Like I haven't done anything to that. That's like what they look like. They're just phenomenal. I just stood there for a while just looking at it and touching it, and it's just like super smooth around there, just like the green in there that is just so unusual. But I just love the shape of the V. And there's quite a lot to the right as well, but it just didn't work. There's another struggle is trying to find compositions that work with these trees, because they're just so like gnarly and all over the place. So I was quite surprised to find this one that worked, and all this in the back, having that there with the fog and stuff like that kind of simplified that scene quite a bit too. But it's just amazing walking around in these areas, just seeing these trees, and it's just kind of like a photographer's dream if you can find the right compositions.
You certainly want the bark of those sort of scenes to be wet, don't you, as well, because that really brings out that color.
So all of these I shot after it had just rained. And that's what it does. You're exactly right. It brings the color out so much more.
Either that, or you need a really big spray bottle.
That's it.
You might laugh, but I've heard of it happening.
Really.
I've heard of people taking up there and throwing buckets of water on sections of snow gums so they can get colours. Obviously not the whole tree, but I have heard of that happening, certainly here in Tasmania. But I mean, really, just wait until it rains. Stop being
take a bucket.
Just wait until it rains.
Bucket and a hose ASAP.
Oh, gee, I'm in a good mood tonight.
That's right. You get enough sleep.
It's that cynical thing. I've been holding back for how many episodes? What episode?
Yeah, that's right. You finally just started getting going. It's great.
Yeah, once you start, you can't stop.
Warming up, Nick. Warming up.
There's another one. Just the curve of this.
Yeah, it's
the yellows are just phenomenal.
That's a really great composition. It's absolutely beautiful, mate. Yeah, well done.
And the thickness of it,
like so sensual.
Yeah, it is a big tree, but I've kind of emphasized that with I use the wide angle for that just to kind of bring that out. But yeah, it worked well with that coming around like that.
Even that little bit of grass just sort of growing out of that little hollow there too. See, there's a lot of detail you can.
Yeah. Oh, I missed that, Lucky. Thanks for pointing that out.
If you look at there's a lot to look at. If you had a big print of that to look at, you could really explore
every corner.
There's just another take on the snow gums. I just love that, like, you can see the little bits of snow just on there, kind of like there's like big tentacles kind of thing. Just how they're shaped up there as well. Like a lot of them, they just don't sit straight up. Just shows like the force of the winds up there are just phenomenal as well. But just how they branch out like this, it's just bizarre.
You definitely.
It's just on one side of the branches.
Sorry,
it looks like it's just kind of more on one side of the branches.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so intriguing because it gives a natural frame to the branches.
It gives that three-dimensional sort of aspect, doesn't it?
And it wouldn't work without the snow. If there was no snow,
these are just brown logs and stuff.
You're just completely lost. It's really the contrast between the snow and the branches is what makes it work. But what really makes it work is the drifted snow or the blasted snow on the
bit of rime,
But
also there's still that depth with that little bit of fog in the back too, just to let it fade out as well. And would you like take quite a lot of different frames and sort of just go through them later and see what works, or you sort of where you're in the field you sort of work to a point and then you kind of go, I've got it, and so you kind of know that when you get back into the Lightroom you can just go to the end and that's where it was, kind of thing? Is there do you find that you go back and find a few gems later as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like I'll just, like, this area here is just full of stuff like this. It didn't have anything exactly like this, but this whole area was, I don't know how big it was, but I could walk around the whole place in about like 10 minutes, and there's just all these gnarly trees, and just spending a lot of time trying to work different compositions, and ones that I thought would work don't, and then sometimes I'll just get home and go through, like I'll try and like in a way document the area, just capture all different angles and stuff like that. Things like this, like a scene like that, I just know that's what I'm working on. I just want to get that right. But when I'm going to places like this, where there's just heaps of different branches all over the place, like this, you wouldn't notice that if you just kind of walk past it. You really have to get right up close to it and kind of see it, because there's just a heap of trees all around. So it can be it's taken me a while to really compose scenes like this, especially in this forest. It's just this area, a lot of it's quite overwhelming because there's just so much going on, and a lot of it is condition based. So I'll usually just these days chase these kind of conditions because it simplifies the area up there so much more.
I'm interested in the process too, because I mean I'm very much on I have to admit I often chase the grand scenes more than anything, and when I try these sort of more intimate scenes, it does get very frustrating trying to find something that works. And I mean I know you probably went through that phase, and sort of was there something that you did or a change that you made that sort of helped you get more of what you were hoping to get, if that makes sense?
I don't know. I reckon it was just a lot of time in the field.
Just practice.
Because a lot of the time I would see scenes, and then once I framed them up, it just wouldn't work. Like I'd see them with my eye, and I think it was just just spending a lot of time in the field composing. There's a lot, like these scenes you know, the gums, these ones here, a series of 4 or 5 images. They've got like a hard drive of failed images. So yeah, it's probably just going out and trying to visualize it, how it's going to look in the scene, just working it, and it just ended up working somehow. I don't know. Condition based as well. So a lot of this, when you go up there, when it's clear skies, you would not find a composition. So a lot of it is very condition dependent.
It's just like, if you're shooting a grand landscape, generally, not always, generally it's best to be there early morning or late afternoon. And I guess to do intimate landscapes, you have to learn what's the sunrise or sunset equivalent for
what makes it sing.
intimate landscape. What makes it sing? Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. Is it, do you need fog? Do you need it to be still? Do you need it to have just rained beforehand? Do you need rays of light coming through the branches? Do you need completely flat light so you can really bring out the contrast in post-processing on rock patterns, something like that? Or
so I guess in some ways there needs to be
light, you need backlight.
It needs to be a consideration that if you're struggling, then maybe is the conditions actually conducive to getting you a good shot to start with, and maybe it's better to try for something else in that case.
Pretty much, yeah. I think that's what I kind of figured out, is that where I was struggling was I was shooting these scenes just in the wrong conditions. So all these scenes are shot during the day. I rarely go out early in the morning or late at night. This scene here is probably at like 11 o'clock midday or something like that. Because it's just covered in fog up there for most of the day, you won't get any light through. So I guess you've got to start working other things, and these scenes as well. That slight bit of light coming in on that there, but a lot of it was around the fog that kind of simplified that back there, the wet, the rain that had brought out those colours. So I've seen these trees when it hasn't rained, and they just don't pop like that. So you definitely need the rain, particularly with something like that as well. Like the composition's there, but it's just, you need that condition to bring out, to make it complete, if that makes sense. That was one last scene that I got, similar area to this one. So that kind of like hand, like kind of coming up. These trees and those rich yellows. And again, without the fog, that's quite busy in the background there.
Like a cradle or a basket or something,
And these are just, I've got 2 at the end. This is just classic kind of at the top.
Glorious.
So this wasn't even planned at all. I just went up there. I knew there was going to be fog up there, and I was actually planning on shooting some intimate scenes. And this is actually just off the road. I haven't hiked anywhere from it. Just pulled over and I saw this fog rolling in. And when you see fog like this at Hotham, you have to get out and do it, because it can just disappear in 2 seconds. That will just be covered completely. So I got out, and that stayed like that. This just moved really slow, and it just stayed like that for about half an hour. So I could really frame it up nicely and get a bit of that light coming through here.
Is that morning, midday, afternoon?
About probably like 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, sort of. So I'm assuming you're more likely to get fog in the mornings.
Yeah. And this is just up at Falls, just over Christmas. We just went camping up there and want to start exploring this a bit more. I haven't done too much exploring around Falls Creek, but this was. I wanted to get a scene with the wildflowers, and it's probably the first time in about a year that I pulled out the wide angle. So
That was one thing that really, I mean, I haven't unfortunately shot this area in sort of the summer months or, late spring. And one thing that really blew me away when I went up to Kosciuszko and I think it was in Jan or Feb, and just all the wildflowers, such amazing subjects in their own right.
Oh yeah.
I'd definitely go back just to shoot those.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I only kind of really thought about shooting wildflowers this year, but kind of each season brings something different to shoot. So yeah, that's
awesome.
it.
And we had a question from Ben Mays actually on YouTube. If you've got a favorite, I guess, out of all of your images, maybe even one you haven't shown tonight or one you have, if there's something that it's always hard to do that, but
a favorite. The tree shot that I showed before, with the kind of, where is it? That was my favorite for a while.
Yep.
Yeah, but I do like this shot.
Mm.
Kind of just because I've been all about the snow gums.
Yeah.
I went through a big period of trying to shoot a lot of snow gums, and this one kind of, just
it's one of the best I've seen, Jeff.
Sorry?
It's one of the best I've seen, I reckon.
Yeah, just kind of encapsulated it in the way that when I first started wanting to shoot them, I kind of had this idea in my mind of what I'd want to do, and I just couldn't do it for quite some time. But yeah, I just really wanted to accentuate that, like show just these colors. A lot of people don't see them when they come, because you really got to get into the bushland and stuff like that. But they're just something that need to be seen. And yeah, once I saw it with the rain on it, it was just something else.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for sharing all of that amazing work with us. And I'm sure a lot of all of you out there's pretty inspired to get up into the high country, and don't be shy to give Jeff a shout out if you're coming through. I'm sure, as he mentioned, he'd love to have a bit of company out there shooting. And we just really wish you all the best with the conditions and the lights on your side up there.
Everything's on your side up there, especially not having to worry about any smoky business this season. And Jeff, where can people engage with your work?
So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and I've got a website as well, freestonephotography.com. So I've got prints for sale on there as well.
It's a beautiful website, by the way. It's way better than mine. Not that that's hard, but it's really elegant and beautifully put together.
Yeah, thanks.
And nicely curated too, actually, Jeff.
Yeah, no, it took me a while to put together, but again, I had a kind of idea of what I wanted to do with it, keep it kind of simple, but yeah, it came out well.
Yeah, it comes across as very refined, actually.
Yeah, thanks. Cheers.
I'd be proud of that.
Yeah. No worries. Awesome. It's been great.
Well,
good chat.
Thanks so much for joining us. As we alluded to earlier, we're evaluating Clubhouse as another form of us sort of having a platform or having a chat. So we haven't got any formal announcements about that, but we'll talk to you a bit more about that next week. I think anything else to add there, Paul?
I'm just packing my bags to head off to the Tasmanian Men's Gathering, my 18th or 19th. So if anyone's aware of my Men with Heart exhibition that's been traveling around the state and starting to move around the country soon, hopefully, after COVID shut its national tour down. And so I'm a bit excited to engage with, the principle of men working on become better men and working on mental health and aspects of really positive masculinity and dealing with the issues that come up as men in a very supportive environment, and just working to be better dads and brothers and bosses and sons. And I'm I don't often shout that out, but I just thought, wait a minute, I'm actually really proud of that. And I got my first mock review of a book that Dex is helping me make, actually, on the Men with Heart exhibition that's been traveling around. And I think that'll end up being an ebook, and we'll look at doing some physical versions and see if we end up getting published. So step by step, because it's a community project. Even though it's my photography, it's under the umbrella of a wider community. So things take a little bit longer, but they often come with a lot more support and breadth because of it. So yeah, that's a little bit
It's
exciting.
a huge body of work, so it must be very fulfilling to
20 year body of work. I'm up to about close to 30,000 images now, I think.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much again all for joining us, and we'll be back again same time next week. Until then, thanks so much again, Jeff, for joining us, and I think all of the links to his sites are down there in the description of the YouTube video as well, and we'll catch you later. See you all.
Yeah, thanks again, Jeff.
Thanks
for your